okay, let's get back to it. We'll circle back to that.
It was weird because the reason I mentioned that, it was almost like, because I woke up that day and I was like, oh, it's December 18th. And I was just like very acutely aware of like, today's like a strange day. This is the day that the attempt happened. And so nothing had been happening for weeks at this point. So election's like what, November 3rd, month and a half has passed. Nobody's coming to my house anymore, rarely. And I'm doing my show like normal. And I'm reaching the end of the show and I see out of the corner of my eye, I get an alert from my Ring doorbell camera that somebody's at the front door. And so I'm reading through my super chats. I'm going through live chat
on
messages.
The air.
Yeah, I'm live. And, I'm working through the messages and I'm keeping an eye on it. And I see that this guy has a loaded gun. The guy's
standing. Laugh.
Yeah, well.
So you're live, and
yes.
You see that there's a guy with a gun outside your door.
Yes. He's got a motorcycle helmet and a backpack. He's got a gun drawn and he's knocking on the door yelling. And the thing is, I didn't want to tip him off that I knew he was there because I thought, I don't want him to get the drop on me or something. I just didn't want to give him any information about, because I don't know if he's listening to my show. If I start freaking out or cancel the show, I don't know. Maybe he knows more about my movements inside. So I keep the show going for like a minute and I wrap it up very quickly. I finish the show. My producer comes running.
Did you hear that? That's crazy.
Your sincerity and your honesty. But there are always people who are going to like distort it. And I recounted basically the Christian gospel at Charlie Kirk's memorial service, and everyone's like, you're an anti-Semite. I literally didn't have one thought about Jewish people. It had nothing to do with that. It was whatever. So, but I was thinking about this conversation, which I'm sure can't imagine in the ways that it'll be distorted. But I do hope that people who want to learn what's happening and who you are will watch the whole thing. It's probably naive hope that it won't be reduced to whatever you're saying something naughty and me laughing and see they're both Nazis. I mean, that's going to happen, of course. But I'm willing to take that risk because I just think it's important to know you're clearly ascendant. You're enormously talented. You're more talented than I am, for sure, as a talker. So, and there've been a lot of attempts to silence you and it hasn't worked. So my calculation, I'll just be as blunt as I can be, is like, do I want to have Fuentes on? Everyone's going to be like, but you're a Nazi just like Fuentes. Okay. But then I'm like, I don't think Fuentes is going away. Ben Shapiro tried to like strangle him in the crib in college, and now he's bigger than ever. So it probably would just be worth hearing what Nick Fuentes thinks. I just want to be transparent about my motives here.
Yeah.
So those are my motives.
I love the dynamic here. This is a father-son conversation. Tucker is sitting with his kid the way a dad sits with his son at the kitchen table after something bad happened. This isn't an interview. You're watching mentorship. Tucker's not grilling him. He's not judging him. He's just listening. And then when he has something to say, let's say a point of difference, he says it like a father would. Honest, direct, but with plenty of love. And Nick receives it that way too. He's not fighting Tucker. He's learning from him. It's very unusual actually for me to see Nick Fuentes not being combative. Now, soon they're going to get to how Nick Fuentes almost got assassinated. Let's keep listening.
Let me ask you, I referred earlier to the assassination attempt against you, and it's very fashionable, among like the permanent victim class, like every, BLM leader was, they're trying to kill me, or Seth, whatever, from the Babylon Bee, people are trying to kill me, and people use threats against them, which are like daily for a lot of us, as a way to kind of make themselves unassailable or immune from criticism, or to attack their enemies. Your words inspired violence. What is stochastic terror? I can't even pronounce it. It's like some academic term, whatever. But you had a real assassination attempt, like an actual one, which got no publicity that I recall. What happened?
Yeah, well, it was after the election last year. I put out this tweet and I said, your body, my choice on election night. And, I wasn't, look, I'm not going to apologize for it, but I thought it was like a weak joke. It's like a lame joke. It's kind of like the most obvious turn of phrase.
It's a college joke. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
So I had other good jokes that night, but that was like the one that caught on because I just think it captured the imagination of liberals who were like, it's over for us, which it kind of is, but in some ways. But so I put that out there. I didn't even vote for Trump, but I put that tweet out.
Who'd you vote for?
I didn't vote at all. I just recused myself. But that's just what makes it ironic because I became in some ways emblematic of the election, even though I didn't participate. But so it got 100 million impressions on Twitter and people were saying on the news that kids were saying it in school. It was on like the news that in middle schools and high schools, the boys were saying that to the girls, your body, my choice. So it became this thing where it's like, he's creating this toxic environment for women. So the internet lost its mind and people then started posting my address online because they were so unhappy with the tweet. And so on TikTok and on Twitter, a screenshot of my address, my phone number, all my personal information, it went viral. And when I say viral, I mean there were multiple tweets that got 20 million views with my whole readout, all my information.
Like your actual address where you spend the night?
Yes, where I live, where I do my show.
That's terrifying.
All of it.
Damn. Did you know that?
Yeah. I started to see it. So the election Tuesday, obviously, it was like Thursday that my address starts blowing up. I was going to do a show Friday and someone shows up to my house. Some weird looking guy shows up to my house and just walks through the yard, walks through the gangway into the backyard and is just circling my house and then goes away. So we call the cops, me and my producer, and we said, maybe we shouldn't do a show tonight. And that weekend, we hired private security just for the weekend, like 200 people.
You didn't have security?
No, I don't have security. Well, I didn't then.
Of any kind?
I didn't have cameras or anything even. I had nothing.
Okay.
I was raw dogging it. Yeah, which was not smart, maybe, but never had a problem like that.
I've always lived that way too.
Yeah. But so that weekend, we hired a security guard just to park his car outside the house and monitor things. Literally 200 people came.
To your house?
Yes. Not all at once, but one after the other. Driving by, yelling, walking by, throwing eggs. Multiple people threw eggs at my house, ordering pizzas, ordering DoorDash, whatever, walking through the gangway. It was like a war zone. Like this security guard was yelling at people all night and it went on all weekend. And then it went on throughout the next week and the next weekend. And it was bad. I got out of my house. I went to a hotel for a week while this was happening, waited for it to blow over.
You do your show from the hotel?
No, I took a week off.
Wow. Did you announce any of this in public?
No, I had to keep it very...
Why?
I didn't want to track more of it.
Yeah.
Because if you say, oh, they're here, then people go, oh, no, we got to keep up the pressure, or turn it up. And people at that time were talking about burning my house down. Like on TikTok, there were viral videos of people saying, we're going to burn his house down. And then they doxed my parents' address. People were showing up to my parents' house. It got really bad. And eventually it just blew over. About a month passed. And at that time, so it was like late December. It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's?
Mm-hmm. Always an admirer.
Okay, hold on. I need to stop right here. 200 people showed up to this man's house. 200. People throwing eggs, people swearing at him, walking through his yard. I mean, I'll be freaking out. And his parents got doxxed too. His parents' house. Now, I know. A lot of people can't stand Nick Fuentes. I get it. But I need everybody watching this to separate the person from the principle for 1 second. Because when somebody's home address goes viral and 200 strangers show up, that's not accountability. That's not justice. That is a mob. And it doesn't matter if it happens to somebody you love or somebody you despise. If you're okay with it happening to people you disagree with, you'd better be okay with it happening to you, because that's where this road goes. And he had no security camera, nothing. He had no security guards. He was raw dogging it. That's what he said. Which honestly, that's most of us. Most people watching this right now have no security system, no plan, nothing. And that should make this story hit different. Do you think doxing should be a federal crime? Let me know in the comments. All right, let's keep playing, because what happens next is genuinely one of the craziest stories I've ever heard in an interview. I mean, ever.
But we don't need to go into that. I guess. Like,
Well, that's okay. Let's get back.
Well,
We'll circle back to that.
it was weird because the reason I mentioned that, it was almost like, because I woke up that day and I was like, oh, it's December 18th. And I was just like very acutely aware of like, today's like a strange day. This is the day that the attempt happened. And so nothing had been happening for weeks at this point. So election's like what, November 3rd, month and a half has passed. Nobody's coming to my house anymore, rarely. And I'm doing my show like normal. And I'm reaching the end of the show and I see out of the corner of my eye, I get an alert from my Ring doorbell camera that somebody's at the front door. And so I'm reading through my super chats. I'm going through live
You're
chat
on the
messages. Yeah, I'm live. And, I'm working through the messages and I'm keeping an eye on it. And I see that this guy has a loaded gun. The guy's
Sorry,
standing.
laugh.
Yeah, well,
So you're live, and
Yes.
you see that there's a guy with a gun outside your door.
yes. He's got a motorcycle helmet and a backpack. He's got a gun drawn and he's knocking on the door yelling.
I think that was smart for him to not react online.
And the thing is, I didn't want to tip him off that I knew he was there, because I thought, I don't want him to get the drop on me or something. I just didn't want to give him any information about, because I don't know if he's listening to my show. If I start freaking out or cancel the show, I don't know. Maybe he knows more about my movements inside. So I keep the show going for like a minute and I wrap it up very quickly. I finish the show. My producer comes running in and I say, who is that? What's going on? And he goes, oh, I called the cops. They're here. The guy's gone. I said, okay, good. So I start getting changed out of my suit and I hear gunshots go off outside.
Damn.
Yeah. And I literally like jumped to the ground because I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. And I step outside for a minute after the dust kind of settles, and there's like 10 cop cars all up and down the street, and they have the whole block locked down. Police tape everywhere. There's like a dozen cops. Like I said, the whole block is shut down. The alley is shut down. And they go, get back inside, get back inside. We have no idea what's going on. We have no idea what happened. And they wouldn't let me or my producer leave until the morning. That's how late they were there. And finally, at the end of the night, after all the cops left, I came out in the very early morning.
Did no one come and explain any of this to you?
No, nobody said anything. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And finally, I go out in the morning and I asked the guy, oh, okay, what happened? He told me the story. And so it turns out that it's this young guy. He's 23 years old, white nerd, short guy. He was at U of I, University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, about 2 hours south of where I live. He killed 3 people earlier in the day. He went to his roommate's house, college roommate's house, killed his roommate, killed the sister, the guy's mother, got in his car and drove directly to my house, parked outside my house, got out a .22 pistol and an automatic crossbow. Weird choice. And he knocked on the door, which is where I saw him. He went around the house. He tried the back door, tried the front door, and the cops pulled up. He took off running through the gangway, hopped the fence, ran into the neighbor's house, I guess he went into the neighbor's basement because the door was unlocked. He was hiding from the police. He shot 2 of their dogs, which is devastating. He runs back outside and the cops see him. He shoots at the cops. The cops shot him in the face and he dies on the spot.
What was his motive?
They never told me. To this day, I have no idea.
They never told you?
No.
What just happened? Can we just sit with this for a second? So this kid, 23-year-old, killed his roommate, killed the roommate's sister, killed the roommate's mother, 3 people dead. Gets in his car, drives 2 hours north, pulls up to Nick Fuentes' house with a .22 pistol and an automatic crossbow. In 2024, what are we even doing right now? This is so recent. And Nick is live. He's on stream reading super chats. The guy is smart for not showing and not panicking. He obviously did the right thing there. And I don't know if that's bravery or if that's shock or if it's survival instinct, but that is one of the most terrifying things I've ever heard. Somebody describe that calmly, the way he tells this. No drama, no exaggeration, just matter of fact. That's almost more disturbing than the story itself. Then the cops show up. The guy runs, breaks into the neighbor's basement, which is even more, I don't know. I don't know how to process that. Shoots 2 of their dogs. Why kill the dogs? And that broke my heart. Rest in peace to those dogs. They did nothing wrong. He shoots at the police. Crazy. And so dumb. The police shoot him in the face. That's warranted. And he dies on the
So what
spot.
contact did you have with the police after this?
They came by about a week later. Illinois State Police came to retrieve the ring camera footage of the whole incident. And so they had me download that onto a thumb drive. And that's it. I never heard from the cops, never heard from the government.
Not at all?
No, nothing.
A guy comes to murder you. He's murdered 3 other people and 2 dogs. He gets shot to death and no one bothers to tell you anything?
Nope, nothing.
Is it really a country at this point?
No. It's ridiculous. And
so what was his motive? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. So the story that I read online, because obviously the news.
Okay. So Tucker's line just then, is this really even a country at this point? I can't even argue with that. Whether you're left, right, center, libertarian, or whatever, if a triple homicide suspect shows up to your house and the government just shrugs it off, to me, that should concern every single one of us. Please tell me, were you aware this actually happened to Nick Fuentes? Please be honest, yes or no in the comments. Because the fact that most of us are just hearing about this on Tucker Carlson says more about what the media decides is important and what they decide to bury. And let's keep going because now the conversation shifts to something bigger.
So he was like 5'5". I guess he was involved with drugs actually with his roommate. They sold drugs together, something like that. They had a falling out over the drug money or something like that. The roommate beat the shit out of him so bad he dropped out of school. He had this major falling out with the roommate, but they were close, had a big falling out. The shooter took him to small claims court over some money. And I guess this guy was just in a downward spiral. He lost his job. He got in a hit and run crash and ran from the police. Then he was swearing at the cops when they showed up to arrest him. And I guess his life just kept getting worse and worse and worse. I assume he took it out on the roommate and popped off, killed the whole family.
It's horrifying, but how do you fit into that?
So this is just my opinion, speculation. This is like a month after Luigi Mangione. He had on and the shooter at my house had on a motorcycle helmet and like a costume. And so I think he was maybe like a copycat of Luigi Mangione. He thought he was going to be like a hero and assassinate some reviled political figure who was going viral at that time, being hated for that tweet. So I think that might have been the motive, but that's pure speculation. I have no idea.
I mean, it's a well-documented fact that all kinds of bad actors use unstable people for political assassinations, right? It's happened. We know it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think this might be an example of that?
I don't think so, but it's certainly possible. The reason I say I don't think
it's kind of funny. I mean, I think of you as conspiracy minded, but you don't have a conspiracy in mind here.
No, because I really believe that when you look at all these things, and by these things, I mean these like really disturbing instances of violence like Luigi Mangione or Charlie Kirk or these school shootings, there is something going on with these kids. It's nihilism. It's these people that are maybe mentally defective, extremely online. I think there's like a real problem there. And I don't doubt that sometimes these people are involved with maybe a foreign government or they're being groomed or put up to it by an operative. But I think to assume that it's always that ignores that like there's a very real problem of nihilistic, surrealist violence that comes from young people. And, you know, like this guy it's a triple homicide out of nowhere. And then he tries to kill me. I think he just went crazy, but I could be wrong.
Describe the circumstances that have led to this violence. Like how does a normal young man go from being a normal young man to being a murderer?
I think that it has a lot to do. If you read through all these stories, they always have a few things in common, which is that, and people have pointed this out, this is not new, SSRIs are always a big one.
Of course.
But what that points to is a depressive streak. It's always somebody that is a loner, socially dislocated, or socially dysfunctional. You know, they don't have many real life friends, engage in real life activities, slip through the cracks. That's always how it starts. Then they get into either they're medicated by a therapist with SSRIs or they self-medicate, which is
Yeah, most of them are on drugs. That's for sure.
Extremely common. With alcohol, weed, which is extremely potent now, and you could get THC from like a vape pen. So it's very powerful, very accessible. You know, when I was in high school, my stoner friends would have to like go on a walk to the park and roll a joint. Now, with the vape, you can hit that anywhere, I guess.
Of course.
It's very discreet. They also do psychedelics. I think that's a huge part of it. And
how is that a huge part of it?
I think that a lot of them get turned on. They'll do alcohol, marijuana, and then I think they get into psychedelics like LSD or MDMA. And I think those things induce psychosis. These psychoactive drugs, whether it's marijuana by itself or it's LSD, I think they tend to induce psychosis and exacerbate those like existing problems. And basically what happens, I would say that is maybe the next step. And then the other ingredient that's always there is although they don't have a social life in the real world, they have a social life on the internet.
Yes.
And so they're deeply involved in obscure internet forums, Discord, gaming communities. So increasingly, ChatGPT is inducing psychosis. People talk to ChatGPT.
ChatGPT will be accountable for so many deaths.
All day, all night. And you basically have between the three of these things, they kind of go into like a different world. Between the psychoactive substances, the make-believe reality of the internet, totally disconnected from the real world, I think they enter into like this delusional state. And I think that's where that shooter in Minneapolis, I think that's what that was. I think if Tyler Robinson is found guilty, there's been some interesting screenshots about him and his transgender boyfriend. It's the same story there, if that's true. And I would imagine it was not dissimilar with the guy that showed up and tried to kill me. I think those are always the ingredients that produce that kind of violence.
It's interesting. Your audience, as I imagine it, I've never seen any of your numbers. I don't even know how big your audience is. It seems big to me, but I think of them as young men. That's the bulk of your audience, right?
Yes.
And yet here you are criticizing weed and video games and the internet, and you work on the internet. You are a creation. I mean, you wouldn't exist without the internet, of course. You didn't get a job at NBC News. So what kind of reaction do you get when you criticize weed, gaming, and the internet to young men?
A lot of them agree with it because they get it. It's their life.
Now, from about here, you can tell Tucker's now learning from Nick Fuentes, which is kind of cool.
A lot of them, that's their life. Their life is, and another thing we didn't even bring up is the porn thing, which is there also. This is their life. Weed, gaming, porn. And I think they know it's bad. I think they know there's like some sense of guilt. And so it's interesting. I would say it's maybe an 80-20 split, where 20% say, oh, you're against weed? Not cool, man. It's just a plant. Well, they're very defensive about it, about these addictions. And I think 80% say, I know I have a problem. Like I have a guilty conscience. I know it's bad. I know it's terrible.
Why are you against weed?
Because I think that it's compromises the integrity of your mental faculties. I think there's something deeply wrong with that.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
I think it's wrong to numb pain. I think pain is a part of life. I think sobriety is should be experienced. And I think that weed is even worse because I think that, one, it's very dangerous. There's a lot of numbers now out of California and Washington that people are going to the hospital for psychosis. People are going crazy because of it.
It's also more subtle and therefore more insidious. You can't, I've done it. If you have a 12-pack for breakfast, everyone knows. But if you take a hit off the dab pen, nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use it all the time.
Yeah. And it makes you a loser. It makes you lazy. People that are addicted to weed are not
Nick doesn't fumble. He doesn't ramble. He delivers.
Motivated, don't care about anything other than weed. There's sort of an irony there where I used to hang out with a lot of stoners in high school. I never smoked weed, but all my friends did. And they were so chill and relaxed and didn't care about anything. But if you criticized weed, they would freak out and get extremely defensive.
Yes, I've noticed.
Right? If you insinuate that it's addictive, if you say it's a problem, they get very junkie behavior. And so I've always hated it. I think it's disgusting.
What is porn exactly? Describe how available is porn? What is it? I know what porn is, but you said it's a huge factor in the lives of young men and a bad factor.
I can tell Nick Fuentes viscerally understands the young man, and hearing him break all this down, I can tell he's a complex thinker. And I'm also realizing Nick Fuentes actually plays an important role for young men because he's not just diagnosing the problem from a distance. He's one of them. He lives in it. And when he tells the truth to them, it's less offensive, I would say.
Why?
Well, this is another thing where it's reality distortion. That's kind of the theme. Just like psychedelics distort reality, just like a kind of internet society is a form of delusion, so is porn, in the sense that, a lot of people maybe don't realize, and we talked about this a little bit, people are getting turned on to porn when they're 10 years old. And when you are going through puberty, when you're developing your sexual faculties, how could you stay away from that? Every kid has a phone. Every kid has an iPad, and every iPad and phone is, if you know what it is, loaded up with porn. And it's infinite and it's ubiquitous and you can get every kind of it you want, whenever you want. It's in your pocket.
This is a warning to every parent and how you should manage every single device at your home.
And so something that is almost never talked about is that this is a generation that's totally sexually dysfunctional, I think, because of pornography. And some people are able to cope with it. Some people don't have a problem. But I think a lot of people, and maybe even a small minority, have a serious problem with it. And the
How does
problem,
it make people sexually dysfunctional?
I think that it's impossible for a real woman to compete with the availability and the novelty of pornography. A real woman, like without getting graphic, she's only one person, and maybe she wants to do something sexual, maybe she doesn't. Porn is, you could have 100 different women in one sitting doing anything, that whatever niche or
This is very true.
idiosyncratic thing a person might be into, it's there. And so I think that novelty combined with that availability, it makes it so that, when you think about courting a woman, juice isn't worth the squeeze. And so there's like also a problem of like erectile dysfunction, people that can't enjoy regular sex because it does not compare to the intensity, the novelty, and the availability of porn. It's hyper stimulation. And so I think that's sabotaging a lot of normal sexual relationships.
It seems like it's making a lot of people gay too.
Yeah, and trans.
You think that's true?
100%.
What is that?
I think that the novelty is a huge part of that. I think that if you are somebody that uses pornography multiple times per day, which many people do.
Actually?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a lot of jerking off.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And, if you're doing that multiple times a day, every day for years, since you're a kid, well, eventually you get bored and you want to move on to something more extreme. And you're kind of, it operates, I think, similar to like a drug. You kind of have the same kind of resistance to it that you would to a drug, or a tolerance for it. And you're always chasing that initial feeling the first time you used it or the first time you saw a certain thing. And I think eventually you just chase more taboo, more transgressive. And I think maybe some people are more prone to that than other people, going in a really extreme direction.
Is how Charlie Sheen got AIDS, actually.
Yeah.
Through just being jaded and looking for something more transgressive. That's just a fact.
And there's
I did not know that.
something too about what it does when you look at it. Because people don't realize that it is a fundamentally different experience being involved in intercourse versus
That's incredible.
watching other people have intercourse. And I think that actually does something to you.
Tell me, what do you mean?
I think that, for example, I think Steve Saylor has written about this, that there's multiple kinds of transsexuals. And he says that one kind of transsexual is somebody that likes the idea of seeing themselves as a woman, is autogynephilia.
Yes.
And I think that, one of the theories for that is you watch a man having sex with a woman that isn't you so much, you kind of achieve an identity with the woman in like a weird, sick way. You almost identify with the woman. And so there's weird things that happen when you're watching that and having such strong emotional and sexual experiences with it.
That's fascinating. I've sensed for a long time, having had a lot of young male employees mention porn as a problem. I mean, the big porn companies give visibility to foreign intel services on the back end.
There's an extra reason not to watch porn.
So that means people know what you're looking at. There's likely video and audio of you watching. So that, that's like such a deal killer for me. I'm not a huge expert on the topic, but I have always sensed this was a huge deal, but I've always been too embarrassed to like do a show on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like you're describing something that's everywhere, that affects everybody. And that is, do you think it's related to the huge decline in like actual sex and relationships and marriage, screwed up dating? All of this derives in part from porn, do you think?
I think it's a huge part of it. It's a huge factor. And it's even on the other side too. It's become so destigmatized for women to actually participate in porn. People don't even recognize that OnlyFans is a whole separate category. It's an innovation in the realm of pornography, because you have what everyone knows as porn, which is like videos of porn stars, like dedicated career sex workers having sex. in a relatively controlled environment or something like that. But then you get OnlyFans, which is like Patreon for nudes or sex. And basically, there's now a very large subculture